I've heard a lot of different things described as hand cannons, but I think this one really is. 20mm Hispano fired from the shoulder. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at the Croatian Police Museum in Zagreb, Croatia, taking a look at some of the particularly outlandish small arms, or medium-sized arms, developed during the Croatian Homeland War. And today we have the RT20. Now, RT stands for Ručni top, which translates literally into hand cannon, which is a pretty appropriate name for this thing. The 20 is for 20mm, which is the bore diameter. Engineering-wise, it's a really interesting ad hoc sort of firearm. So the origin of these starts with a supply of Yugoslav People's Army anti-aircraft gun barrels that the Croatians got their hands on. These were barrels for the M55 anti-aircraft gun. Typically it was a vehicle or tripod-based 3-barrel light anti-aircraft gun chambered for the 20 by 110mm Hispano cartridge. Now, the Croatians got the barrels, but what they really needed wasn't so much light anti-aircraft guns, and it would have been quite a lot of work to try and build an aircraft gun, an anti-aircraft gun around just the barrels. What they really needed were anti-materiel rifles. The Croatians manufactured a number of 50 caliber single shot or magazine fed anti-materiel rifles, and they decided that they could make use of these 20mm barrels to do the same thing. The problem is, it was a very heavy barrel. 20mm Hispano is a very heavy cartridge for a shoulder-fired man-portable weapon. And so what they did is they cut the barrel down, they built it up as a bullpup, and then they developed this thing to basically mitigate the recoil of this heavy 20mm cartridge. So this design work was done by a guy named Ratko Jankovic. He's actually also the designer who is responsible for Croatia's copy of the Milcor 40mm grenade launcher, which they manufactured as the RGB-6, these guys. And essentially what he did was put gas ports in the barrel here and then build this tube that redirects gas backwards out the back end of the gun to do two things. First off, it's by putting ports in the barrel here, you're reducing the muzzle velocity of the cartridge, which is going to reduce the felt recoil from it, but it's also taking that gas and instead of redirecting it to, say, operate a semi-automatic action, it's just blowing it out the back of the gun. And basic Newtonian physics says that if you're pushing a bunch of gas back that way, the gun is going to be pushed forward. So this essentially acts like a little explosive jet to help counteract the recoil from the muzzle. Now, people will often look at this gun and describe it as a recoilless rifle. Now, that's really not true. There's a vague similarity in the concepts, but with a recoilless rifle, the idea is that the cartridge case itself is actually perforated and doesn't hold pressure, and gas vents equally in both directions. It's pushing a projectile in one direction, and it's just venting gas like a rocket in the opposite direction. That's a very valid type of firearm, and it's something that allows you to have a very heavy projectile without needing to build a containment pressure vessel to actually withstand it. What we have here is actually a fully locked breech 20mm bolt action rifle. We've got a Mauser style bolt here, 9 locking lugs on it, but you think of this almost like a revolver cylinder gap. You've got gas ports here that are going to reduce the gas pressure. So this isn't a recoilless rifle. This is the minimum required to make 20 by 110 Hispano functional as a shoulder-fired individual weapon. And the recoil from these things is quite severe. So there are a few videos out there on the internet, which they aren't mine, I can't include them here, but if you do a quick search on YouTube, you'll find a couple videos of guys actually shooting these, and they are not recoilless. There is a lot of recoil to them. So let's take a closer look. Let me show you exactly how they put this together and some of the cool features that went into it. All right, let's start at the back end here. This is a single shot rifle, and this one's a bit sticky, I apologize, but open the bolt. Like I said, a little sticky. Open that up, you can see we have 3 sets of 3 locking lugs each. Yes, the shooter's shoulder is here. This is not the sort of thing you can reload by yourself from a shooting position. You would either have a two-man crew operating the gun, or you just put the gun down, open it, extract the empty cartridge, put in. We open this up, pull the bolt out completely. You can see bolt face there, the 3 sets of locking lugs. We have a Mauser style striker system back here. In terms of mechanics, like as a bolt action, there's nothing particularly unusual about the RT20. Moving up here a bit, we have the sighting system. There are no iron sights on here. They all have scopes, and it's a very simple system. There's just a big block bolted onto the side of the exhaust tube block, the gas block, I suppose you could call it. Pair of scope rings. Initially, these were fielded with Collis 3 to 12 power scopes. This one has a Yugoslavian Zrak 6x42 power. The maximum range of this was something like 600 meters, practically speaking. Take a quick look here at the muzzle before we look at the gas system. There is a ginormous muzzle brake bolted onto this thing just to try and reduce the impact on the shooter. Again, it's a huge cartridge. A sort of standard sniper rifle style of bipod mounting peg was used here. We have just a pretty simple basic bipod in place. Looking at the back end of the gun, you can see the exhaust cone here. There's a little cutout at the bottom to make space for the bolt. This does create backblast. It's not as substantial of a backblast as you would get from a true recoilless rifle, but it is significant enough that you don't want to stand right behind it, and this isn't a weapon that can be operated indoors. Like, if you're in a small room and you fire one of these things off, it's going to have significant deleterious effects on the building and the shooter. All right, to disassemble this, I just have a lock button here. Push that down and I can unscrew this tube. There's quite a lot of it to unscrew, and then it just slides out through this back bracket. And this is nothing but a plain hollow tube to redirect gas. And if we look inside there, you can see 2 of a series of gas holes that are drilled in the barrel right down there. Now, to be honest, these gas holes look like they're at about the same position as the gas block on the M55 anti-aircraft gun system. So it might have been the case that the Croatians simply cut the barrels down, left the chamber intact, obviously, and then also left the gas ports intact and used that to locate their gas block. Or they might have drilled these separately, I'm not sure. The only marking on here is this serial number 154 on the gas block. Now there's one other really cool element on here that I want to point out, and that is this bracket on the right side of the gun. You'll see various explanations for that online. People say it's like a night vision mount. That is actually a mount for the backpack carrying system. Now this is a gun that weighs, in its final production configuration here, 19.8 kilos, which is like 43.5 pounds. That's a really hefty gun, and there are no real obvious handles on it. So how does one carry it around? Well, they came up with a system for carrying it around. You have this backpack frame with a matching lug right here that is going to slide onto the gun, and voila, you have 2, even these out, you have 2 backpack straps here. The gun is carried muzzle down on these 2 padded rests. So that's how you would actually move it down, and then this has this quick detach dovetail mount for when you need to store it or take the backpack frame off. The first examples of the RT20 were manufactured in 1992 with proper regular mass production beginning in 1993. Now, unfortunately, I don't know a total number of these actually manufactured. This one's numbered 154. This isn't the sort of thing that there were thousands made of, but I don't know. couple hundred, something in that realm. Again, remember, these weren't being made because this was the ideal design that someone envisioned. These were being made in order to exploit a supply of existing available barrels. So once those barrels are gone, that's probably about the end of manufacture of the guns. At any rate, they were used during the Croatian Homeland War. A handful of them are actually still in the inventory of the Croatian army, as well as some with various police SWAT units. If the police come after you with a 20mm RT20, I don't know what you did wrong, but it warranted a response. The ammunition used with these was typically high explosive rather than armor piercing, because this whole recoil mitigation system takes about 20% or about 25% off the muzzle velocity of the gun. So where 20x110 Hispano was originally 830 meters per second, about 2,700 feet per second, with this setup you're getting about 620 meters per second, about 2,000 feet per second. So a significant reduction. High explosive doesn't care how fast it's going, and it's still quite effective. The one other thing to point out, you will find a lot of articles online that describe how this was designed specifically to target the infrared sighting systems on Serbian M84 tanks. That's not true. I'm sure they were happy to use them for that role, but they were not developed specifically for that. They were developed as anti-materiel rifles because the Croatians wanted anti-materiel rifles in a variety of forms. And then they were used against, well, tank observation mechanics when possible, but also against light armored vehicles, against, you know, all sorts of military material. So a big thanks to the Croatian Police Museum for pulling this out and giving me an opportunity to film it, show it to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you find yourself in Zagreb with a few hours to spare, take a chance, take the time and head over to the Police Museum and check them out. They have a bunch of really cool exhibits on the whole history of Croatian and before that Yugoslavian police services. Thanks for watching.